to another of our sessions today focused around community planning, specifically around the RMP decision-making process. Kelsey, if you can go to the next slide. It's really good to be here with everybody, and oops. Thank you. So we are absolutely thrilled and very grateful to Ben Maxson for joining us today, planner with the Makah Tribe, who'll be sharing about the tribe's resilient strategic plan and plans to relocate critical infrastructure to higher ground, and hopefully providing good discussion for us moving from there. Hopefully, Ben, if you're able to stand for a little bit of questions anyone has. And then following that, we will have a group discussion together around everyone, part of the cohort, around your decision and your tribe's decision-making processes. And so without further ado, we will hand this over to Ben for a wee bit to share from their experiences and some food for thought for everyone here.
Gotcha. Well, thank you, everyone. Obviously, first timer kind of jumping in on this. So maybe as we talk through some of the things that we're experiencing and diving into, you all could help add in, by no means a talking head, what I desire to be at this point in time. But yes, Niabay, the Makah Tribe, definitely has faced plenty of challenges. Over 90% of our strategic infrastructure and location is all located down in the tsunami zone. Not only that, we are horribly inefficient in our building usage, our strategy planning, as well as our team play. So that creates struggles amongst leadership development, tribal organizations, so forth and so on. So we have started in the partnership. We were awarded a resiliency and relocation grant with the intention. We have a portion of ground that is up. It's actually located just adjacent to our tsunami trail from downtown. East Nursery is a location we call. And there's about 40 usable acres up there. And so we're looking at relocating already. We have our wellness center relocated up there, and that is our non-traditional medicine and health. So that'd be mental health, counseling, drug addiction. That also would suffice. We've had physical therapy, acupuncture, massage, and community development and growth. But we're currently in a process with our clinic to relocate all of our traditional health practices. So that'd be dental, pharmaceutical, as well as natural medicine back up the hill. And then the next adjacent 40 acres is where we desire to move and transition our hub. So that'd be all tribal facilities, operations. In that same becomes the infrastructure and development. So awarded the BIA grant and resiliency, as I've stated. I don't mean to be redundant, but so what we're looking at doing is diving into all the information of the past 14 years with water, sewer, roads, access, grid infrastructure, and development as to what that would look like. So we have set aside property. We have some funds to now develop the infrastructure so that we can deem it usable and attainable. And from that standpoint, that leads us into the second aspect, which would be our green and renewable energy. As we're trying to develop these new facilities and buildings, we really want to highlight and bring awareness to the fact that we desire to be and function as sovereign energy producers to help support our growth and development up out of the tsunami zone. So with that comes all of the different changing leadership aspects, revolving council leadership, waste disposal. So it's not just a grid infrastructure of water, but now we've got to consider a relocation of our water treatment plants? How do we ship and manage the wastewater, brown water as well? So from that standpoint, it's just a matter of working in partnership with BIA. There's a whole aspect of our schooling and our education. We're partnering currently with OAC, and they have some school funds with the Cape Flattery School District. So our school, although it's on tribal land, it is a public school. And so having our children moved out of the tsunami zone and into the newer infrastructure as well is going to be a big step of that partnership. So I'm sure there's countless things I'm forgetting, but maybe we could open the table for some added thoughts and or a conversation about that, Julie.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. And I was wondering, just open up to the group of just curious how kind of as the decisions were being made in this process, what did that look like for community involvement? Were there meetings, voting, how the community engagement looked around this, and then also tied to that of, what kind of assessment plans were put in place kind of in the lead up to making that kind of final
In the
determination.
lead up. So
Yeah.
I think that is, if I had to take a guess, we're about 80% complete with a strategic plan and development coming out of our tribal council. And so we've really tried to take the leadership with them. In that capacity, it's not something that has publicly been out for retrofit. In light of, Julie, we're not there yet. We don't know how much of the 40 acres is developable. We're not quite sure what infrastructures needed for power, water, sewer, roads, and access. What we are very aware of is that it's time to transition. And ideally, that's where this resiliency grant is going to take us into. We're looking to hire a 18-month employee here in the next 3 months, and we'll partner with a couple of our grant writers, as well as the school, as I've stated, and tribal council in a strategic plan. We do have 3 community event outreach development plans that are set over the next 6 months. And the intent there is to talk relocation, resiliency, and then grid infrastructure, energy, water, sewer.
That makes sense. Yeah. Were there just kind of, I was curious, sorry, one more question. Then opening it up to folks if, for the folks are making that decision, like kind of, did they have, just all options on the protecting in place to relocation, and kind of, what gave that final determination that was the direction that needed to go?
That might be a little bit more my time if I understand your question. I think there has been a very strong push corporately through our community. Everything we've done at the medical level, we've brought in 2 new emergency response vehicles for tsunami and incident-related concerns. We've had everyone involved from the likes of Chamber of Commerce to other local organizations to help us cut and build a tsunami evacuation route that's now been finished 5 years, I believe. And so it's not just one step. It's probably been, long before my tenure in the transition. Am I helping answer that question? To present the need. There's no question. I sat in at a school board meeting, and at best, our children, with all streets blocked off, officers in, we've been able to mitigate all of our children out of the elementary, junior high, and high school. It's taken us 14 minutes to evacuate to high ground. If you study emergency response, I think 11 is probably sometimes the best you get in those instances. And so even with best case scenarios, so we're talking officers blocking roads, not mom trying to come get daughter, all of us doing what we're supposed to, and we still are short 3 minutes in the event of that. So I think by that public information being circulated through Nia Bay, there's this awareness, hey, we need to redevelop our land and our structure for the safety and of our community. I come with 6 kids to this phone call, and I think about, boy, I want my 6 kids to grow and love and enjoy the heritage and the land that they've been blessed with. So we have to be prepared.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Thank you, Ben. I just want to open it up to folks, to have the opportunity here to ask questions. With Ben of, looking at how, they've already been kind of walking through this in process, things that are coming up on y'all's end that might be helpful in talking through together. And so if you either want to use the raise hand function or just unmute or put in the chat.
This is Cynthia. Can I please ask a question?
Oh, absolutely. Hey, Cynthia.
Hi. So, Ben, you said you had a strategic plan. What's involved in that strategic plan? Because fortunately, we were able to find the Tahoe plan that Quinault had for their master plan for relocation. And that's what the tribe is moving towards now at Shoalwater. So is your strategic plan, does it encompass kind of that master plan of what your relocation village would look like, or what does it look like?
So right now, great question. Ours, Cynthia, is still in development stage. I couldn't tell you. I know very clearly from all 5 council members, this is our priority. I've seen it at every agenda meeting. Most recently, just 2 weeks ago, we sat and we developed the energy strategic plan. I have not seen a formal relocation or resiliency plan all combined. So that might be a little above my pay grade or my level. Not to shortcut what I'm doing, but I'm trying to help bring specific pieces to the council so that they can produce that strategic plan. We're not there yet.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question, Cynthia. Other questions coming up for folks? All right. Well, I had another question too about, Ben, some of the partnerships that you mentioned. Were those partnerships where, we're developing MOUs together? Were these long-standing, where people brought in through different kind of, isolated grants here and there, stitching it together, which I know often has to happen. Just curious what that landscape has looked like for y'all in really developing those partnerships to bring this into fruition.
You bet. So we do have some long-standing relationships with specifically Red Plains OAC and ITEP. In those relationships, all 3 of those, I can specifically state that we've sat at the strategic plan level of what does our relocation plan look like. At each event and corner, we do have council and leadership representation. They've brought their own contacts to the table. And that's where I think one of the concerns, but yet successes that we're starting to develop, is to see some continuity amongst our tribal leadership playing a part in those relationships. Once again, I can't speak for years past, but what I've been told is that we've struggled to get everyone at the table in those relationships. And so we've rounded the corner here in the last, 2 or 3 terms with our leadership.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. And yes, I see one hand up.
Hi, Ben, this is Tamara from Port Gamble. I hope you can hear us. I think we're having internet issues.
You bet. Mine's a little slow too, so I apologize.
Okay. Our question is, you talked about that you're moving infrastructure and all these buildings and stuff up the hill. Are there families, residents in that area that need to move up, and how are you dealing with those if there are?
That's a great question. It's interesting to me that the general community consensus right now says, fantastic, move our infrastructure, take care of it, but we're not willing to move and relocate yet. And maybe you have experienced some of that as well. Yeah. And specifically from two councilmen, I've had direct communication on this, and they both have stated we are going to move forward with the business structure and the development moving, and then hopefully model that across the board. This is the relocation. You're not losing what you know to be primary Nia Bay. You're not losing anything. In fact, you're gaining longevity for our community, for our loved ones, for our children that I've already spoken about. And so council is very much hopeful that in through the business transition, we will also develop support for our locals and their primary residents. All building development that we have moved forward on, including an early head start $2.4 million relocation that we're going to open in mid-June, has transpired. All new housing development, that's our Sail River development up the hill. So there really is no infrastructure being developed down in the tsunami zone. So what you have is you have family, and I can speak of aunts and uncles and grandparents who are, nope, this is home, this is what I know, this is where I'm staying. Fantastic, but we're still going to model the business development and all new residential growth out of the tsunami zone.
I think some of you guys at all probably haven't gotten there discussed. I don't know if they like pass down lots, future generations, like making a sort of moratorium so that they can't be passed to the future generations, or you guys aren't there yet?
So currently, that discussion has been had, but there's not group consensus yet whether or not it's something leadership would stand behind. So right now it is still 100% passed down generation to generation. It is still honored that those are family lots. There is no loss or desire of the tribe to step in there yet. I think we're trying to do it more organically, especially with those 3 meetings coming up in the community over the next 6 months to discuss the priority for us to do this. That's going to be a tough buy-in.
When you get there, hopefully we'll have moved past that. So,
okay. I saw a question in the chat here. Does Makah have an approved hazard mitigation plan? Absolutely. Jasper Bruner, our chief police officer, has worked hard with that. Not only that, we have a new and growing developed mitigation team, a hazard and resiliency team. Tinker Lucas sits on it. I can think of a handful of others. Our GM, Patty Manuel, helps develop and lead that. And then has the tribe work with Clallam County much on the disaster resilience planning, and have they been good programming partners? That's a twofold answer, and let me say this as best I can. I sit in on 2 different Clallam County PUD meetings this coming Friday, the 21st. And so I'm very hopeful that we will get good support. I can tell you on the PUD side, we absolutely have had very good support and interest. They've been at the table with the relocation. They currently would like to relocate our energy hub. I'm not going to say the name right because I'm speaking off the hook, but our grid infrastructure needs to move and is a part that PUD's ready to go. We just don't have the location and the infrastructure ready yet for Cougar Hill. to go with that, we process our own water. And so the unique part of that is we're partnered to some extent because the tribe supports water share just off res in a local community as well. And so there's a tough catch 22 there on the water side. So if I'm answering that question as well as I could, Clallam County's been great for disaster resiliency as well as PUD. The water side and sewer side has been a little bit more difficult to partner with. That help, Joel?
Oh, Joel, if you were sharing back, you're on mute. Ah, you got a thumbs up, yes. And could you, Ben, you said it earlier, was it, I missed it a bit, if the land that looking to move infrastructure to, that's already owned by the tribe?
Correct. Yeah, that's all on tribal land. There's no question there. It's been location is still strategic to where we've already developed water, sewer, fiber, and power to the newer development of residential. So it's Cougar Hill. If you know Nia Bay, you come into Nia Bay, and our first community to the south accesses where we have both some old residential, new residential. That's where the 40-acre of resiliency development is transpiring now. That also is where we've partnered and have land ready for our new clinic, as I stated, but we have our non-Western medicine already functioning up there as well.
Thank you. Other questions for, oh, you're getting a
I
good
see you there,
stuff.
Joel. Yeah. Let me say this one as careful as I can. I, in planning, Joel, love the question and love the partnership with IHS. I know IHS has stepped in on our clinical side, meaning the health facilities. I don't know if we've partnered with IHS on wastewater yet. That's a department that I just haven't had a lot of working relationship as of yet. Dave Lucas, our wastewater and freshwater guy, is fantastic. He works directly with our GM, so it supersedes our planning department a little bit.
Yeah, and Ben, this is Karen. I'm just curious, could you talk a little bit about the process? So you mentioned that the clinic was already in the new location. How did that, like, was there certain infrastructure you had to get in place first and then move the clinic, or like how did the piecing of that go together? I hope my question makes sense.
You bet.
What was the first?
Yeah, so
how that
the piecing was twofold. So prior to holding this position, I was a business manager at our health clinic. So I sat in the development stages with IHS and funding for what we call the wellness center, so the non-Western medicine practices. But that was strategic because that land development was transpiring when we were developing our residential lots up in the same location. So by doing that, we tackled both stones. So that went from 8-inch sewer lines to 16-inch sewer lines. That went to the fiber and the power. So if you came up our 200-line development to where the wellness center and the Cougar Hill turnoff will be, we moved from all above ground power to all below ground grid structure. And it was strategic because that was 150 new developed residential lots, but also it brought the infrastructure first for the wellness center. And then now, secondly, all infrastructure is there. Ground is ready to be broken in the next 12 months to have our traditional clinic move up as well. Now, that infrastructure resides on the east side of Cougar Hill and Sail Hill. So we will need to match that infrastructure on the west side where these 40 acres will be developed for. tribal facilities, school, education, and potentially more residential development as well.
Great, thank you. That's so helpful. Thanks.
And I was just curious, Ben, just in walking through the process, have there been any key kind of, bumps in the road that were overcome, key challenges, lessons learned in your process that things that are shareable, with folks here as they're, working on their own planning process, and implementation as to what it looks like that might be useful for folks to be considering ahead of time to, maybe hopefully avoid that road bumper stall in the process?
You bet. I think if you looked at the parent view, 10,000 elevation looking down, we know the big picture is resiliency and relocation, but I would say we were not, and this is just myself, please, I do not want to speak for council. I do not want to speak for other departments, but I think our strategic plan was probably tardy in its presentation and availability. I think we have been making right choices in the move and in the transition. I wish, hindsight's 2020, I wish we could have had the developed plan of energy, water, wastewater, relocation, all of that 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I go back to my days at the clinic when we were developing the wellness center. We knew health and wealth was a priority for that transition. And so we're landlocked in Nia Bay Primary. The only way we could move was up and out. Well, fantastic. We're going to move up and out instead of let's get, 4 terms of councilmen all on board and have a strategic plan that carries through. I'm so happy we're doing it now. I just think we might be a little tardy looking at, of the 150 residential lots, I think we only have 30 available still. Ground is ready for the new clinic. We know what we're doing, but we haven't had the strategic plan maybe in place prior to follow it.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. Other questions, thoughts for Ben? Yes, Karen.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about the funding sources kind of involved in moving all these, different facilities, and what's been beneficial, and maybe how to coordinate if there's different funding sources. Any any good strategies for
Great question. Unfortunately, we've operated a bit more segregated than we needed to. So I won't be able to speak to a lot of funding options. I know medically, obviously, the partnership with IHS as well as the tribe has been key, essential. We do have a couple huge grants that have come through, but I wouldn't be able to refer you those names. Unfortunately, that's a little bit outside my expertise as well. So moving forward, very beneficial for us, Karen, I think, to pull that together. So we'll go back to your other question, what's some infrastructure that would be needed ahead of time? Let's have a financial committee that sits over all of those. Mm-hmm. I look at myself and I say, well, my technical title is economic developer. It really should probably fall to me, and yet I've been pushed more to green energy, and so I've been a bit in my own position with that. So I can improve.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, appreciate what you're saying about, kind of financial, like a financial committee or something. So mm-hmm. That's like a great suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure many can relate to wearing 10 different hats at once. So you're in a good company.
Absolutely.
Other questions folks have for Ben?
I have a question. How big is your team and what type of developers do you have on your team?
My service got there a bit rough. I couldn't tell if there was a question there or not.
Yes. How big is your team and what type of developers or team members do you have on your team?
You bet. So in our planning department, we oversee and have partnered with transportation. We've got grant writer. We're looking for a second grant writer. We've got economic development, which sits here, and then Bud, which is not only our parent director, but also his specialty falls to technology development, relocation, and infrastructure. So.
Yeah, great question, Jamie. Thanks, Ben.
There's never a time, though, that we're not connected with both our GM and our council members as well. I guess it probably needs to be said, but we don't take those steps without them.
And I apologize if this has been asked before, but I haven't been in the meetings until today. How did you come about deciding what type of energy you wanted to utilize up there?
So we partnered with ITEP, so that's Energy Transitions Initiative, and they came in and have helped us write a strategic plan for energy. There is no one way right or wrong. If you took a poll of everyone in our office, I think each one of us would have a different preference that we would like to go to and move towards. The problem is Nia Bay strategically puts itself in a place that there's just not enough solar. And ironically, although we have a fair amount of offshore wind, there's just not enough wind either. And then the caveat there, everyone is hot and heavy on hydro. Love that idea. But for the production of hydro that we would use, then we limit our natural resources. We are people of the ocean, right? We're people of the sea. And the last thing we want to do is either take away what our creator has blessed us with, or B, limit and inhibit some of the strength of the ocean in itself. So I think we're caught in a very catch-22. We know the need, we know and have some ideas through our strategic plan what it's going to take of each of them. But also we have natural limitations by all three of them. So there is not one that is a fix-all.
Would you be willing to share your strategic plan or RFP at least?
Yeah, I think I would be more than willing to do that. I would probably prefer to run that first through the higher powers above me, but by all means, I think we could. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can we table that for another, and then we could share that? Yeah.
Yeah, that works really great. Thanks, Ben. Other questions are coming up for folks. I know
I tell you what, Julie, you kind of threw me in it here. I wasn't quite ready for all this, and I hope by all means there's some value to all of you through it.
Well, I think we have had you on the hot seat, sir. So it's a good, hopefully good energizing start to the day. I know we did promise, just about 30 minutes of your time. I know we're going a bit over that. So maybe just any kind of last key thoughts, key, takeaways for folks to consider, in their own processes moving forward.
how do you summarize it? I would say this in my planning and maybe how I approach it, Julie and team, is if we can come together with the right plan and figure out what works, I have this tendency to believe that the finances and the other pieces do fall together. I think it's more important to find and honor your strategic plan. The long-term development of our communities tribally is just crucial. And so staying focused on those, I think the rest of the pieces fall together. I'm looking forward to the community involvement. I'm sure there'll be some pushback, but I also believe this is for the betterment of our people. So
No, I appreciate that, and looking over the long term ahead. Well, huge thanks for stepping in today and stepping up. And let's just give Ben a round of virtual thank you, sir. I know
thank you all.
it's a lot for folks to be tackling, and just any wisdom advice along the way, I know is deeply appreciated. Well, I will welcome you to stay on with us if you would like for conversation. Also appreciate you have your day to get to. So however long you'd like to stay, or if you have to hop off, no worries at all.
All right, perfect. I'll stay on for a while. I'll take the photo off and just listen. And then when I gotta go, I'll go. Thank you, everyone. I hope to hear more from you all in the future.
Thanks so much, Ben. Kelsey, can we go back to the slide, please? Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I think what we're gonna do, we're gonna stay together in one group. I'm gonna actually put into the chat here. Just grab this for a moment. So in terms of building off some of the conversations that started emerging during the winter retreat, wanted to open up this space now. We'll come back. We'll stop sharing in a moment just so we can all see each other again in our squares here. But wanted to see if it's we're up for sharing conversation, discussion around really thinking about the process that your community has been using to make the decisions around protection in place, engaging a managed retreat, and or relocation. So just thinking about your own process, what that looks like, and things especially think might be either questions that have come up for you or what you'd like to share with the rest of the group, either for their own knowledge base, and or getting feedback on, right? Things that are queries or questions that are still out there that you're kind of wrestling with at this moment in that decision-making process. And that might be useful to bring up with the full group, right? That's a big purpose of having this cohort together, is to be able to share with our peers and colleagues, who are going through these processes in real time as well. And so maybe we can, Kelsey, can we stop sharing? All right, thank you. So I just want to open it up if anyone has initial thoughts in terms of the process that your community, your tribe has used to make the decision around engaging in protect in place, managed retreat, and or relocation. Again, ideas that where you're at now, of any sticking points, or where you've been with it that might be helpful for others to learn from, or questions that aren't really emerging for you at this time.